What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Conversation Station. This episode is going to be based around the National Superhero Day, which it is online. I know that's not an actual real holiday, but since it is and I do superhero stuff, I figured it's a really good day to talk about comics and a couple other stories that I just wanted to talk about. So this first one, comic book that I have is a Brave and the Bold, starring Batman and the Legion of Superheroes. I just got done reading this one yesterday, and it was really interesting. This one did come with like a little bit of ripping and tearing on the top. Most of the ones I get are usually in pretty good condition, but this one just seems to have a little bit of wear and tear from wherever it came from, which is totally understandable, being as it's pretty old. So, not crazy old, but again, old enough for paper to have some wear and tear on it. This one is an extremely good story with Batman trying to protect an egg that was full of anti-life or antimatter, and essentially that egg is trying to be stolen from plenty of people. And as you can see here, Batman does his crazy jump to straight kick a man and cave in his chest as he's trying to stop them from stealing something that they don't quite understand. And what they're trying to steal is that egg, and that egg is, as I said, full of anti-life. Oh, antimatter, that's what it is. Yes, so it's full of antimatter, and the shell that holds it is made of something that they can't understand yet, and they don't know essentially what it is, what the shell is made out of, and why it can hold this antimatter when we're in a universe of positive matter. So, they're just these scientists are trying to figure out, how and why, and some thieves show up to steal it, and essentially, the Legion of Superheroes in the future stops them. These are the guys that are descendant from the Justice League, not like from family, but just, superheroes who formed their own league after the Justice League. And, they have their futuristic powers. And we got Cosmic Boy and Solar Heat. Oh, sorry, Sun Boy. Apologies. And we got, eventually, Batman ends up fighting with this bad guy that they're facing, and the guy essentially travels back to Batman's time to steal the egg instead of trying to steal it from their time. And of course Batman has to stop him because he's Batman. But in the midst of it, Batman ends up getting himself taken to the future. And, this guy ends up saying like, oh, I brought this guy with me. He's a bat. He's a Batman. And the boss doesn't seem too happy about that, which is completely understandable, and he explains that he simply just knocked Batman out and left him in an alley, which is an absolutely stupid thing to do. You obviously don't want to just leave Batman to his own devices because he will find you. And Batman does wake up and eventually, figure out that he's in a new place. He dons this little red cloak and keeps it himself covered until he gets to what I'm sure is like the Hall of Justice, but in their time. And he, Batman fashion, breaks in, hacks it. And as they're, letting him in, they're trying to figure out, hey, who are you? Why are you signing in as someone who's been dead for over a century? So, it's just trying to figure out what's going on. And then, of course, he has to tell him, like, hey, I am Batman. I just traveled back in time. And, but yeah, this is a really awesome story to see, Batman linking up with the future Legion of Superheroes and them getting to see how he does his business. And it's just really cool to see these heroes coming together. And the artistry is really awesome, of course, just because, it's Batman. We get some amazing looks and some amazing arguments. And no matter what, Batman, leads his crew and has his own little thing. And so he's always used to being the leader, but in this one, he kind of, lets them do their thing because obviously they're a lot more in tune with this time than he is. And right there we have him just kind of standing there with a hand on the hip, straddled in the wall, looking over the egg, waiting for somebody to screw up. And I believe he's going to try to send that egg into space. Eventually the Legion of Superheroes by the villain get turned on each other, and Sun Boy is shooting something at Element Lad, and Element Lad turns the air molecules around him into the 30th century's hardest known substance. So that was pretty cool. So you can see the fire blast right there, and Element Man's just putting up a straight up wall of just the hardest element of their time. So that was pretty cool to show like how super powerful they are, that even under mind control, they really could still defend themselves and hold their own. On the back, we got a Magnum 440 Tyco ad. As I said, this one's a little beat up, a little in rough shape, more than my usual other ones. The second book that I have for you is a Marvel Saga #1, and it is the official history of the Marvel Universe. And this just gives me like pieces of just about, a lot of heroes, and pieces of their story and how they came to be, with some really cool shots and just some really like different perspectives on things. Another thing I like about this is in the little box right here, we got Galactus. So that's really cool because of how, detailed the front page is. And the back page is also really detailed. It's not even an ad, it's just an awesome artwork on the back. And this one is really cool because it gives us, like I said, just backstories to so many different heroes. Even if it's not full backstories, it kind of just gives you like, hey, Doctor Strange is in the mountains, learning magic, learning the mystic arts. And it shows World War II, that the first superpowered costume heroes appeared. There was Captain America, an Atlantean prince, Namor the Submariner, the original android Human Torch, and many others. And so that was like they said back in World War II. And so it shows like the evolution. Right here we have more centuries passed, and then new heroes arose in the 19th century American West. The adventures of Kid Colt, the Rawhide Kid, the original Knight Rider, and the Two Gun Kid became legends. So yeah, it just gives us like little pieces, different times, and pieces of, certain heroes' stories. I believe down here we even have Thor and Hercules being talked about. So, and again, like some of them is not full on of the story. Right here it shows how Cap went into the ice. The Submariner is essentially crazy and he's been robbed of his memories, so he's just kind of like a vagrant that runs around. They give us a little look at Daredevil, and again, like I said, a little look at Doctor Strange, and I believe Peter Parker as well, just to say, hey, these heroes are over here doing their thing. I mean, Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson are studying to begin their careers in law, and Professor Charles Xavier is tutoring Jean Grey, and right now she's his only student. So yeah, just definitely different, different places. Dr. Don Blake, who feels a sudden desire to take a vacation to Norway. Although he does not know it, it is there he will reclaim his true form, that of Thor, the god of thunder. So, and more, it just goes on into little bits of the story. We get a lot of Reed Richards because a big part of this is about the Fantastic Four. And it just goes into pretty much explaining their full story and, how they got their powers, the 4 astronauts who went to space and came back with amazing powers. And it shows Ben, turning into the Thing. It shows Johnny lighting on fire for the first time, Sue going invisible, and as well as Reed figuring out that he can stretch. So that gives us those, of course, quick stories that we're so used to. A little shot right here where it kind of springs us forward and people kind of know a little bit more about the Fantastic Four, but they're not 100% sure who they are. So it's, they're starting to get known by that page where you see. And then by this point, they just get more famous, just kind of like what we see advertised in the new trailer in the new movie. They battle a villain called Mole Man, who essentially traps himself underneath the planet in the underworld, so to speak. And they give us a awesome look at the Alpha Flight leader Guardian and how he came to be. And it also talks about Wolverine and how he was part of Department H. Let's see, I believe is what it's called. Yes, Department H. Yeah. Pretty cool. And it says like that is the project that ended up giving the mutant super agent codenamed Wolverine. So that's pretty cool. And I think this shot of the Guardian getting his suit put on, I thought that was really sick. Just like all the wires and stuff like that. And then it transfers into that shot of him with the suit on and him clearly doing his thing. So that was really cool. And the story after that was for Hank Pym. And we see Pym going through his shrinking, trying to get it right, and figuring out, that ants are his friends and things like that. But it really rounds out, and it's really cool because in the end, spoiler, Fantastic Four end up starting to steal jewels, mess with stuff. They melt statues, and they believe he pulled a lever for an alarm that set off something that was really bad. Oh, he shut the power grid down and plunged the city into darkness. That's what Mr. Fantastic did. But in the end, we figure out that those were Skrulls trying to mess up the Fantastic Four's public image. And then it tells us where these comics are from and what the references are to and things like that. So that was pretty cool. But this was a really cool story. Really enjoyed it. Loved the artwork on the front and the back. Honestly, like I can just look at the front and the back all day long, just because I enjoy it so much, and I thought it's really cool. All right, the next portion of this, we're going to talk about some real life heroes, some people that aren't wearing spandex and on the movie screen and aren't huge paid actors. They're just people who did the right thing, and I think deserve a little bit of recognition on this National Day of Superheroes. In 2013, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, 2 teen boys chased a car carrying a kidnapped little girl. She had been snatched from her front lawn, and the police had searched for her for around 2 hours. And let's see, his name was Tamar Boggs, and his friend heard about it, and they grabbed their bikes and started looking for her. And as they got to somewhere down the street or somewhere down the way, eventually they spotted her in the back of a Suburban, and the driver took off, and they chased that guy for 15 minutes until the cops were able to catch him, or until I believe he gave up because he realized that he wasn't going to get away. And they were able to get that little girl back, at which point he let her out, and the little girl ran to one of the boys and said, "I need my mommy," and they were able to get her home safely. That was just one of those things that, you know, it happened so long ago, and I think about it every now and again just because that's a hero. That's somebody who in the moment did what they could. You know, he didn't know what he could do. He just did what he could. Him and his friend rode around on their bikes and looked, you know, used their eyes. And then when they found him, they just stayed with him, you know, and that to me is just, they saved that little girl's life. You know, who knows what happened to her, where she would have been, you know, if they wouldn't have done what they did, if they wouldn't have seen her in time. And, you know, yeah, it happened back in 2013, but it's, like I said, it's just such a big part of what people need to be doing, which is when you don't know what to do, just do what you can, you know. And these boys, they did what they could, and they're kids, you know, kids that answered a call that it's, you know, you can't, you know, you couldn't ask them to do it again, you know, because it's not an ask, it's just something that they did. And I just think it's really impressive, and it's always a story that to me, it just, you know, I don't know what you could say. It gives me hope. It just makes me happy, because, like I said, people doing the right thing, you do what you can. And I just think that, you know, those two definitely deserve as much recognition as they got, and I hope they have great lives. I hope all of them have, you know, great lives and great things going on for them right now. The next story I'm going to talk about is, I don't know the year, actually. I have to double check. Sorry about that. I did not write the year down, but it is... Let's see, they didn't give me the year on this one. I'll have to double check the year. Oklahoma couple were driving home, and their truck was hit by a tornado, and it was tossed. The mother and father both had back, neck, sternum, ribs, and arms were broken. That was the father. The mother had a back, neck, and jaw, and ribs, and right hand were broken. So his parents were in really, really dire conditions. Somehow he wasn't as hurt. This 9-year-old Branson Baker, he, as far, you know, from what I read from the article, he simply told his parents, "Mom, Dad, don't die. I will be back." And he ran as fast as he can, and you know, on a darkened street. And they said he used the lightning strikes to find his way home, because it was so dark. So he had to use the lightning strikes, and he ran through, like, down trees, down power lines, and ran through everything to go get neighbors to bring people back to save his parents. And through that, he was able to save them. And that is, to me, is just one of the most insane things to think about. A 9-year-old boy telling his mom and dad, "Please don't die. I'll be back. Just hold on." And then he ran like their lives depended on it, using lightning strikes to light up the road, using that to guide himself home. It's hands down one of, like I said, it's just heroes. These are the heroes. Like, people who do things in the moment that, you know, they do what they can, and what they can is enough. And it leads to, like I said, some really, really amazing feats that it's insane to ask children to do things like this when half the time we don't even see adults stepping up. But those stories are just, you know, they make me have hope that, you know, there's still people out there. There's still those heroes. There's still those people that if they saw something really, really wrong going on, that they just wouldn't stand by and let it happen. They do something, you know, and that to me is extremely important. And I think that, you know, I think both these boys and everybody involved just deserves, all the kudos in the world and all the recognition in the world. And that's who I would like to recognize on National Superhero Day. It's people who do things like that. So that's probably where I'm going to end the video. I really appreciate any time you spent watching it. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thanks for watching. Hope to see you again.